Hey folks, Cool18 here, and welcome to a Fallout 4 pro tip video. Just note that it's possible you might see something in my settlement that may be a minor spoiler here and there, especially with some of the NPC companions you might run into, but we're going to try to avoid them wherever possible. But as always, if you're worried about spoilers, don't watch any Fallout videos. Pro tip number 1, did you know you can put your gun away if you hold R? So tapping R reloads, holding R will put it away. If you're playing on a console, then whatever key is your reload key will also do the same thing. Likewise, there's actually a cool function where you can turn on the light of your Pip-Boy. If you hold down tab, so hitting tab brings up your Pip-Boy. Holding down tab turns on your Pip-Boy Light. Now, it's not really obvious over here. If only it were nighttime, then we'd be able to see it better. Previous Fallout games, you were able to hit T and wait a certain amount of time. Also, the Elder Scrolls games, you could do that. You can't do that in Fallout 4. Not if you're just standing around. However, if you sit in a chair, then you can hit T to pass the time. Or, as always, you can just sleep. So there's a chair here, for example. I can hit that. And now I can hit the T key and wait a certain number of hours. So let's go ahead and wait, I don't know, 12 hours so that it'll be the middle of the night. Then we'll be able to show off the light quite well. You may have noticed at this point that my UI is blue instead of green. It's a very easy thing to change. And actually, it's going to be in a similar place as affecting our Pip-Boy Light. So let's go ahead and look at the Pip-Boy Light first. Okay, it's now properly nighttime. So let's go ahead. If I hit tab, it'll bring up my Pip-Boy. If I hold tab down, then my Pip-Boy is set to maximum brightness and I have a light going around. Get out of my way here. And then we can go here and you get some nice vision. Now, alright, the user interface color. You can see I've changed the blue, which actually I think adds a little bit of extra visibility. But, you know, the Pip-Boy Light might be even better if it wasn't bright green. The green is very atmospheric, don't get me wrong. But, you know, maybe some extra visibility would be good. So, if you go and you hit escape and you go to your settings and you go to display over here and you scroll down, you've got the HUD color and the Pip-Boy color. The HUD is your heads up display. So for example, if I take the blue back down over here, you can see the color is basically your original heads up display color. Looking much more familiar there. You can make it brighter. You can just use the arrow keys so that's a little bit easier. You can make it brighter, you can make it yellow, orange, whatever you would like. I kind of like the blue. I think it stands out quite nicely. And if I want to change my Pip-Boy Light color, what I can do is change the Pip-Boy color to be bright white over here. Now, the downside to this, and I gotta say is a bit of a downside, is now if I hit tab, so my Pip-Boy is black and white and gray instead of the green. Yeah, I like the green. I think it's got a lot of style, but this is certainly very legible, don't get me wrong, right? And then the light that you're going around with is a nice, pure white light that makes it maybe a little bit easier to see the context. So that's another tip over there. Here's a gameplay tip that's quite nice. If you go and you take a look at your perk chart. By the way, some people don't know you can scroll this list. It was not obvious, like, mouse wheel? Nope, mouse wheel just zooms. Like, I don't know why you can't do that. You can't use the arrow keys. You can't use WASD. I have no idea what those things aren't there. There's no scroll bar. You have to go to the top and the bottom of the screen to scroll. I've seen many posts on Reddit that people have played for like 10 plus hours and not realized that you could scroll. And then in those posts where people have put in that reveal, other people were like, oh my god, you can scroll the perk chart. So yes, you can scroll by just moving your mouse to the top and bottom. There's in here a perk called Lone Wanderer, right over here, the Lone Wanderer, which is quite cool. If you're traveling without a companion, you take 30% less damage, and, well, it's 15% per star, and you increase your carry rate by 50 per star, and you can use Alt and Control to go through there. So the first level is 15% and 50 extra weight, and at the max level, oh, actually, never mind. So at the second level, you take 30% less damage, your carry weight is increased by 100, and at the max level, you also do 25% more damage. Here's an interesting thing. Dogmeat, the dog, does not count as a companion for this trait. You can take the Lone Wanderer, and if you're just going around with Dogmeat, you still get the benefit from this. For example, right now, I have the extra 100 carry weight, which I love, and presumably I take 30% less damage in there as well. I can definitely confirm that the carry weight is there. If I switch to a different companion, then I lose the 100 extra weight. If I switch back to Dogmeat, I get it back. And I think the reason is that Dogmeat, you can't equip Dogmeat with, say, like a missile launcher or something like that. So theoretically, you're slightly less strong by going around with Dogmeat, although I quite like Dogmeat. He moves really fast. He can find extra stuff. He does pin down enemies pretty well, especially if you take the attack dog trait. It's very handy. I like that a lot. So there you go. The Lone Wanderer trait, very good. The downside to this is you do miss some of the cool NPC interactions, right? Some of the people have a really interesting dialogue in different bits and pieces. And the ability to equip them with a cool gun. By the way, how do you equip an NPC, your companion, with an item. Well, if I can get Dogmeat over here, Dogmeat, you can trade with Dogmeat. And in fact, you may have noted, I guess I gotta talk to Dogmeat. Stop running away from me. Thank you. Look at me. Lovely. You've noticed I actually have equipped Dogmeat with some items. These are purely cosmetic. But if you go and you trade with any of your companions, and that includes Dogmeat over there, of course, you can still use your companions to just carry extra stuff in case you're above your weight capacity. And Dogmeat can carry a lot of stuff for you. So you still get the extra carrying capacity from having a companion. But when you mouse over something in the list that your companion can wear, for example, this Gunner Camo bandana over here, notice at the bottom there's a T key for equip and unequip. So I can unequip the bandana, or I can equip it back on. Dogmeat can be equipped with welding goggles, which you've got there, which I like, and bandanas. There's a variety of different bandanas you can find in the wilderness. And also, there might be like a dog armor that you can find, apparently, on some of the villains. They have their attack dogs that have some armor on there. People suspect that it doesn't actually modify the defense or the stats of Dogmeat, but it does look kind of cool if you want that sort of look. I particularly like the goggles and the bandana, so you've got that. But if you do have a companion, you want to force them to use something like a more standard companion, you can tell them, hey, listen, use this pistol by mousing over it and hitting the T key over there. So that is super handy. Another thing that people may not be aware of is Cogsworth. I don't know where he is right now, but Cogsworth can also be equipped with hats. And some people have posted some great screenshots of Cogsworth with a little bowler hat on his head, and he looks simply adorable. Also, one of the advantages to going around with Cogsworth is sometimes he will produce items for you, like purified water, for example, and just hand them over to you. And there's some interesting dialogue options over there as well, so it's definitely worth investigating. What's my next tip over here? Yes! So, when you are working on your bases and things like that, or you're trying to equip your weapons, you need adhesive for quite a few things. And a lot of people have complained about a lack of adhesive, or, you know, that it's a little bit hard to find. It's not on this list. How do I get... I guess I can't do it from here. That's a shame. If you go into your own inventory and you go to your junk tab, and you hit the C view over here, component view, you'll actually break it down by the actual components that you have. I can probably remove that tag. That's not the key I want to hit. There we go. You can see all your components that you have in your junk tab. This is what it would break down to. So you can see what it is. It's very handy. Anyway, a lot of people are concerned that adhesive is relatively hard to come by. Well, good news, there's actually a recipe to produce your own unlimited supply of adhesive, and it's actually relatively easy to do. If you go to any cooking station, like this one over here, and we hit craft, and you go down to the utility thing, you'll see there's a recipe here for vegetable starch. It requires 3 corn, 3 mute fruit, 1 purified water, and 3 potatoes. The 4 things put together, mostly the 3 vegetables put together, you cook them, and you get vegetable starch. By the way, any window here that says you have to hit enter to confirm it, you can just hit the E key to confirm it, which I find very easy, because otherwise you're hitting E to cook, and then you got to go all the way over to the other side to hit enter, or you take your hand off the mouse, which I don't want to do. So you can just hit E, 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 E. Or if you're going around dismantling, hang on, let me go into workshop mode over here, go to this car, for example, we're going to scrap this. I can then hit E here, so it's R-E, R-E. It's a lot faster to go around dismantling some stuff over there. Anyway, that recipe, if I go back into my screen here and go into junk and find vegetable starch, you can see here, component view, no, not component view, inspect. There we go. This breaks down to 5 units of adhesive. So 3 units each of corn, potato, and mute fruit, plus 1 purified water equals 5 units of adhesive. Very nice. And you can see my fruit, my farm here. I've got mute fruit growing. I've got corn growing over here. And I've got my potatoes over here. Purified water. How do you get that as a useful amount? Well, apparently, if you do build a water purification plant over here, it will produce purified water. Hey, cram. Neat. It will produce purified water, which then gets applied directly into your...
Looks like it's in working order.
Directly into your workshop. So it goes directly into your inventory. Apparently, any other building that produces things, like trading buildings that might produce caps, will then go into... Not your inventory, sorry, your workshop inventory. So if I go and indeed... Where am I? I'm a bit lost. Come over here and check the transfer window on my workshop. I should actually find, I guess I can go to the aid category, a bunch of purified water, which I didn't put there, I don't think. So don't quote me on it because I haven't 100% confirmed it, but apparently that's the way it works, in which case that would be very, 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 very convenient. I'm sorry about the Vault-Tec rep spoilers over there. I'm not going to tell you anything else about it. I'm trying to stay away from my companion so he doesn't keep spamming me over there. Next tip. Oh, yes, saving weapon mods. So sometimes you'll find a cool item, a cool weapon, right? And it's got a mod that you don't have access to. For example, this guy here, right? Like, muzzle brake. That's interesting. I don't know if I can make muzzle brake, but I might not want it on that gun. I might want it on a different gun. So how can you get that mod? If you just break down the weapon, it looks like you just lose the mod completely. But instead, if you go to your, not armor, well, I mean, it works with armor as well. If you go to your weapon table, which I should really move these things, and you take your weapon that you found here, and you modify it. So let's say I go from the muzzle brake and I say no muzzle over here, and I just take that off. What it will do, it will put this muzzle brake into my inventory. So if I tab out of here and check my inventory, which you can access quickly with the I key, by the way, you don't always have to use tab. J also brings up your quest list, for example, which I actually, sorry, should not show you. Mods. So I should find a hunting rifle muzzle brake. There it is. That should be the one that I just pulled off of there. So it goes into your inventory. Then, apparently, the thing to do is you go into your workshop, and you can take all these mods here, and you can transfer everything into the workshop. And then next time you go to try to add one to a weapon, it will use these instead of building a new one. So there you go. Now, there is one downside to it, is you do have to equip something else. You can't just pull something off. Now, for the muzzle, you can go to no muzzle, which is great. But if you wanted to say, get this scope, you do have to build a standard sight. You can't just pull everything else off. You're replacing the medium scope with a standard sight, which means you'll have to use 1 adhesive and 2 steel to build a standard sight to put on this marksman rifle. And I don't think it's going to tell you here if it's going to use it. Use another one, right? Like if I go to this no muzzle and then I go here, I don't think it'll actually tell me that... oh yeah, well actually at the bottom you can see it's got attach mod instead of build. I could build a compensator, but for muzzle brake, if I hit E, see at the bottom of the screen, it says attach mod. That confirms that I've already got one in my inventory. I won't need adhesive or aluminum to actually build it. So pro tip there. If you do just scrap a weapon, you do not get the mods as far as we can tell. It would be nice if you could, and it would be nice if there was an easier way to pull everything off, but in any case, it's there, and it's not really the end of the world that much. So if you do get a weapon with cool mods, then go and rip them off so you can apply them to something else. Yeah. What is the next tip? Oh, yes! Fusion cores. So, obviously, your power armor over here. This is my first set with the cool flaming paint job. The red makes you go faster. Oh, actually made a mistake there. I left a fusion core in this suit. That means if this base were to get attacked, one of my settlers might actually go and hop in my power armor to defend the base, and they might not get out of it at a reasonable amount of time. So when you store your power armor, take the fusion cores out of them, so that way none of the settlers will come by and use that that suit, which is pro tip. Also, finding fusion, what do you call it? Fusion cores? No? Yes? Fusion cores, yes. Finding fusion cores. Obviously, they're all over the world, and you can find them. There's a limited amount to be found in the world, and as far as we can tell, there's no way to recharge them currently. However, merchants, vendors, will occasionally have fusion cores. They're under the ammo category. So when you trade, check merchants and check the ammo category, because you might find fusion cores there. And merchants automatically regenerate their stockpile, their supplies, their goods that they have from time to time. So you effectively do have an unlimited supply of fusion cores out there in the world. You just have to visit some merchants and then, you know, wait for them to replenish their stock if they run out of them. You do need caps for that, obviously, but as long as you've got some way of producing caps, then you never have to worry about completely running out of fusion cores. You still don't necessarily want to use the suits non-stop, but it is nice to know that it's not the sort of thing that you have to hoard. You can feel free to use them if you want to use them. Speaking of fusion cores and making money, there's another pro tip over here, is that if you try to sell a fusion core that is completely empty, it basically won't be worth anything. However, as long as it has any charge left whatsoever, like this one here, this fusion core with 7 charge, you can still sell that to merchants for a good amount of cash, as long as it's got at least 1 charge left. I guess they just, you know, they got their voltmeter across the two terminals. They confirm that it's got, you know, a voltage charge, and they don't know that it's just about empty, so they still give you good value. So if you really want to milk as much money from your fusion cores as possible, stop when they have, you know, ideally exactly one charge left, but as long as they get low, pull them out, replace them with a fresh one, and then your old core, sell this, because it's not going to be too terribly useful for you anymore. So sell off your old cores before they get completely empty, and you can make some extra money. So pro tip there. Also, and I haven't actually done this, but I've seen some great videos of it. Apparently, if you do run into enemies in these power suits, you can pickpocket the fusion cores. If you sneak up behind them and you pickpocket them, you can pickpocket the fusion core out of them. If you've got, you know, enough stealth and enough pickpocket, then you can go and steal that, and what it does is it forces them out of the suit. You rip out the fusion core from behind them, and then they have to do this slow animation to get out of the suit. Meanwhile, you can just pew 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 kill them a whole bunch, and in fact, if your pickpocket and your stealth is good enough, they still won't spot you. You'll pull out the fusion core, they'll be like, huh, what happened? They'll slowly step out of the suit, and then you can sort of like sneak attack, crit them in the back, and finish them off, which is pretty brilliant. More tips. Renaming guns. So, you can... Get out of my way, freaking Vault-Tec spoiler dude. You can rename your guns, right? You can see here I've renamed some of my weapons as quills, blah, 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 just to remind myself that this is the one that I want to keep. I don't want to accidentally scrap it, for example. But there's some useful tips that people have put online is, hey, two things. First of all, if you rename something and you start it with, say, like just a dash, for example, it'll always be at the top. It'll be sorted alphabetically. It'll be at the top of the list, which makes it a lot easier to find. I don't know why when you go into rename mode, it puts everything in all caps. Like when you mouse over everything at the top of the screen, it has it in all caps, which means as soon as you go into, say, rename, and then you hit enter, it actually renames it to all caps. Well, it didn't actually change there, but change one letter. Go back, rename, change one letter. Oh, that's interesting. You actually have to change it for reals. Rifle XXX. There you go. Now everything is on all caps, which is kind of annoying. So if you do rename something, you actually have to like retype the whole thing. So, you know, quills, combat, rifle, sort of thing, and it goes at the top. So that was one tip, is that little dash. The other tip is, hey, rename your weapons to start off with the name of the bullet caliber, right? So you could go dash, or we could say something like even just .45, because that would be pretty high up to the list as well. Let's say I go dash. Apparently I hit insert there. Dash .45. Combat. Come on. Rifle. Right? If I do that. So the dash makes sure it's at the top. The advantage of having things with dash 45 is if you have two weapons. There would be a good example. Let me rename this one to dash cell pistol, because it uses power cells. And then this one, did I not have more than one? No, I don't. There, we got two 308s over here. That's a better example. Sorry, I'm sort of screwing up here. So .308A, and this one here, I can go and rename to .308B. The advantage is now they're both one on top of the other in the list, and it's easy to mouse between the two and compare the damage and other stats. If you've got two weapons that use the same bullet type, then you can check to see, like, you know, how are things going between these two and make certain decisions. So that's just a little, I mean, it's not a gameplay tip, but it's a very convenient way to organize things. So I'll be probably using some variant of that. I was already using things like putting quill at the start because it would ensure that things would be clumped together, and it would also make it a lot easier to make sure I don't trash my proper weapons in there. So that's renaming. You don't need to break down junk items by hand, right? So if you have a junk item in my inventory over here, go to junk, right? Some people were doing this. They would take the item, drop it onto the ground, and then go into their workshop mode, highlight it, and then scrap it from here so that they get two ceramic. Now, most people haven't been doing that, because what you can do, of course, is you can go here, transfer, and then you hit the T key to store all junk, right? Which is very, very handy. The concern was some things scrap for sort of an odd amount, right? What might be a good example of that? I wonder if there's something I can see at a glance. Oh, the alarm clock might be a good one, right? If we expect alarm clock, it breaks down to 2 aluminum, 1 glass, 1 spring, and 1 nuclear material. So if you're making something like a glow sight, which requires 1 nuclear material, it might break down the alarm clock for that nuclear material. And some people were concerned that if you do that, you will lose the aluminum, glass, and spring. And I guess there's a bit of a timing glitch. Like, it doesn't... The aluminum, glass, and spring from this won't show up in your workshop right away. But as it turns out, people have tested it repeatedly. You do not lose the goods. So if an alarm clock gets broken down for its nuclear material, the rest of the materials will make it into your workshop. There just might be like a weird pause between it, which is kind of odd. And speaking of weird pause, I got to tab out so I can scroll down my list a bit more over here. There we go. Nearly done. Oh yes, with settlement building. Cool tip. So let's say we hold down our V key over here and we decide that we want to build, I don't know, whatever. Furniture. A bed. If you hold down E and then use the mouse wheel, you can move things up and down. And actually, if you hold down E, it'll pan things about as well. So you've got that. There's a few other things as well. I can't remember what they all are. But yeah, you can change the height of an object with E and then mouse wheel, which might help you with stacking things where you want, especially as you're building walls and that sort of thing. You might find that to be kind of handy. Okay, something that's a lot handier. Something that isn't very, very important, but not very well explained by the game. How do you assign a settler to a job, which is not very well explained? Like for crops, for example, you need a settler to work a crop for it to function. So what you do... Yeah. Oh, that's not a settler. V key. There we go. So let's find a settler. Where have they all gone? Maybe they're in bed. Well, I suppose that would make sense. Oh, here's someone. My Vault Tech rep. So you can see when I mouse over him at the bottom, it has the command E. So you point at him while you're in your workshop mode. You hit E to command, and then you can tell him to go somewhere, but you can mouse over something like these plants, and you see it says E assign. So we do that, and now he is now assigned to this job. And in fact, if I mouse over him now, it will, maybe because I already had some stuff over here. Maybe I already have people assigned, or maybe he can't be assigned to it. Or my regular settlers. But when you mouse over someone who's been assigned to someone, it will highlight all the stuff that person has been assigned to. What about the corn? Maybe he can't be assigned to this, as opposed to a regular settler. It really depends. A single settler can work up to 6 food worth of plants. Most plants produce half a unit of food, which means one settler can work 12 plants. So that might be a handy tip. Another one that some people are unsure about is how do you hook up power, right? So I built this recruitment radio beacon, which will actually attract more settlers to my compound, but it needs power. So I built a generator over here to connect it when you are... How come my commands aren't working anymore? There we go. Oh, because I'm still issuing commands. There we go. When you mouse over here, you can see space, attach wire. You hit space, and now you are dragging a wire out somewhere, and you can connect it to various places. This includes houses. Houses are kind of interesting. They will have a little power hookup somewhere on the outside. I actually can't see one on this one. But some of them will have that. And if you hook up the wire to the house power hookup, then any lights on, any lights, TVs, whatever in the house will then be turned on at that point. I might have to actually add a connection pylon. That is almost certainly the case, actually. If we cancel this, power, connectors and switches, there we go. Get one of these bad boys on here and hook you up. Then I can hook up one to the other. Cancel that, grab a wire, run it to here. Gives me experience points, which is great. And now you can see this TV is on. Hey, not bad. And this lamp, yeah, actually, I've got my Pip-Boy Light on, but if I turn that off, can I not place that lamp? The TV is definitely working. So that's it. The lamp probably just wasn't placed properly. But that will light everything, that will power everything in the entire house, and it doesn't actually draw any of your power from your compound. So you can light as many lights and TVs and stuff as you want in a house, and you're perfectly fine. So there's another little tip over there. A big tip. So I went And I went into my perk chart, and very early on, there we go, I picked up, under Charisma over here, Local Leader, which allowed me, at the first level, to establish supply lines between my workshop settlements. And I was like, great, how do I do that? I took it, and then nothing happened at all, which was more than a little annoying. Well, I don't have a generic settler, but it should still work. If I hold V, there you go, Command U, or I can hit Q, there we go. So instead of commanding him, I can hit Q for supply line, and then I can send him somewhere, and he will hook up these two destinations as a single supply line by walking back and forth. And you can see that in your, cancel out of this, in your map view. If you go to map, at the bottom it says show supply lines. If I hit C, you can see I've got a supply line between Sanctuary and Ten Pines Bluff, which is nice. Also, what I also like about this is it actually shows me all my workshop settlements over here. Which is super duper useful, because what keeps happening is I go here and I'm like, yeah, where are my workshops? I mean, you can go to data and you can go to workshops and get the number there and get some stats, but it's still like, where the hell is it on the screen? If you go to supply lines, it'll show them all to you, which is great. And so what this does is it combines the workshops. So this ran into a thing when I was trying to build something at, well, probably, I suspect, over here at Ten Pines Bluff, I want to build something. I want to, I don't know, build a defensive gun, but it needed glass or some component like that, and I didn't have it there. And so I was like, well, I could go all the way back home and pick up some glass and schlep it over here, or I could bring some junk over here and turn in all the junk so that I can use it to build. But that's kind of annoying. Then, like, my stockpiles all get split up and they're not unified, and that's really frustrating. But these supply lines, that's what this does. By having the supply line between these two, their workshop inventory is the same as far as I can tell. And so I can just drop everything off here in Sanctuary and still be able to build everything I want at Ten Pines. And then you can set up a whole network of supply chains to ensure that everything is okay. I don't know if people can die or get, you know, attacked along the way if they go through an unsafe area. I have no idea what those mechanics are there, but I will tell you, you hold V, you find one of your settlers, and then you hit Q for supply line, and then there you have it. And you send them somewhere else, and then they're combined, which is super duper handy. And that is not explained at all in the game. There's no pop-up. It's pretty frustrating, actually. I had to Google it, and it was like, this was like a day one sort of thing, so the Wikipedia information wasn't all there. Anyway, I think that's all my tips to date. I am hoping at some point to make a video talking about weapon design. There's still a lot of stuff that's kind of fuzzy and doesn't make any sense. Specifically when it comes time to how many, by the way, if you hold Q, even if you don't have a valid option, right? Like normally you can only enter VATS if you tap Q and there's an enemy, okay? But you can force it by holding Q, even if you don't have an enemy around. So like, let's say in this direction, literally no one to aim at. Okay, it's still picked Nick Valentine, bad example. Let me run over here and try this again. Although is it going to target Dogmeat? That's still trying to target someone. But you can hold Q to force your VATS to open. And that's particularly important if you've got the Vans trait, right? Vans is this thing over here. Let Vault Tech guide you. The path to your closest quest target is displayed in VATS, which I find very handy for navigating some of the buildings and whatnot. So yeah, you can always hold Q to force it to open up. There we go, like that. And then you get your nice little route that will highlight things and help you navigate buildings. It gets screwed up sometimes. It's not always the most useful, but 90% of the time when I use it, it's really good. So there's another little tip. So what I was going to say, oh yeah, the gun guide, right? Like with this gun, I can queue up 3 actions using my current action points, which should be completely full. And other guns, right over here, so that's one of my 308 type bullets. This one here has the same fire rate, right? They both have a fire rate of 3. But if I switch to this one and hit Q, I can queue up 5, in fact, nearly 6 actions in VATS, even though they are exactly the same bullet, and in fact, as I believe, exactly the same gun type. They are both, I believe, rifles. It's a little hard to tell in here, and I might be wrong about this one. But because of other things, this one here, if I inspect it, and yeah, it annoys me that it doesn't show you the, yeah, I guess this is slightly different. It doesn't show you what the base weapon is. That does annoy me a little bit. It doesn't tell me that it's combat rifle versus a hunting rifle, for example. This, I believe, is a hunting rifle. So you can see the mods, and I believe it's mostly the, well, the short stock helps, and the reflex sight, like, it's kind of fuzzy. Some things talking about lowering recoil. Certainly lighter weight gives you more actions in VATS, although this weighs 11.6. This is a heavy gun, and I still get 5, almost 6 actions in VATS. So it's a heavy gun, and it still does that. And in fact, what surprised me is switching the stock from the short stock to the rifle stock. The rifle stock says it improves your recoil compensation. And yet, that one there does not decrease the action point cost. Doesn't give me more actions in VATS. So I don't really get what's going on. It's not entirely clear. It says that, you know, things with better fire rates give you more actions. This only has a fire rate of 3. And it's really obvious if you're trying to fire it manually why it's so slow. It's because it's got to, like, you got to use the bolt to load the next bullet in. I mean, it can hold 5 bullets, so the reload's not bad. In fact, the reload time is fine. I just reloaded there. But the time between shots, click, 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 does all that. Whereas if I switch to another thing, like this assault rifle, right, which has a firing rate of 55, okay, so I'm going to equip that, and in fact, if I start to fire this, and I'm just going to, it's not an automatic, right? Just fires the one time. But if I tap my mouse key as fast as I can, it will fire as fast as I can possibly tap the mouse key. But then, if I try to queue up in VATS, I only get 2 actions. I don't even get 3 actions. 2 actions! Despite the fact that it says such an unbelievably good firing rate, and despite the fact that it is, in fact, half the weight of this gun. Half the weight of this gun. And it still has only 2 actions in VATS, which is like, well, what does that make sense? I have a recoil compensating stock, and it still has half the actions. I don't know. I mean, it's a different type of gun, but we don't know the math. We don't know the math that determines how many action points each shot uses. So this gun is a great gun for me to fire outside of VATS, because I can just obliterate things like that, okay? And the other gun is terrible to fire outside of VATS because it takes so long to load in the next shot, or to cock the gun again. I'm not a gun guy, I don't know what the right term is. But to pull back on that bolt and fire again, it takes so apocalyptically long, I'm never going to want to fire this thing outside of VATS. But in VATS, it's great because of slow motion time. Now note, in VATS, do I have like a harmless target to hit? No. I mean, I could take some shots at my turret over here and not kill it. Yeah, no, you can find something to hunt. But inside of VATS, like, there's still the animation. There's still the combat animation of my character going and, you know, cocking the gun for the next shot. But meanwhile, the entire world is still in super slow motion, so they don't really lose that time. It doesn't hurt as much. So I don't know. Maybe it takes so long to cock the gun between shots that actually regenerate enough action points. I don't think that's the case, but it's very confusing. Hopefully someone will figure out what all the variables are, and then we'll get a better system for planning things out. Because it doesn't make sense to have, like, this gun here. If this gun here were not fast in VATS, there's no reason to use it. In fact, let me go and give you a little sample. Let me put on that rifle stock. Damn it, Vault Tech spoiler guy. Get out of my way. Shush. I mean, it's not a plot spoiler, it's just a cool spoiler. So let's say I replace this short stock, again, with the full stock with better recoil. Or even better, the marksman stock with superior recoil. Actually, I hadn't tested that one yet. Right, it is adding a little bit of weight, but not that much. Let's try this and see what it does to me. First of all, I mean, who cares about recoil? It fires so slowly. Right, so it hasn't changed this. Fire, click, 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 click. That's exactly the same. Now let's check in VATS. 4 instead of 5, so I get fewer actions there. I mean, there are other bonuses, perhaps, to using the superior stock, but in this case, I'm not sold on it. So anyway, if anyone's got any tips for me about weapon design, please let me know in the comments. And otherwise, see you next time, folks. Bye-bye.